So yesterday I put out a message on my Facebook coaching group, just asking people if they've got any questions for this latest Q&A that I'm doing here. If you're not a member of that Facebook group, go over and have a look. Barton Snooker Coaching Group. You can request to join, and then there's lots of dialogue between different players talking about all aspects of snooker. A lot to do with coaching and their own games and asking for advice, but there's lots of friendly people on there, lots of good chat. So if you're not a member of that, go and have a look, because there's lots of good content on there. So in this Q&A, I'm going to have a look through some of the questions that I got yesterday, and I'm going to go through one by one and answer some of these questions here. So Matthew Watson says, any advice on building consistency, please? So first of all, the first thing I would say, Matthew, is it's all the things that we talk about in these videos all the time. So getting your technique more consistent, having a good pre-shot routine, standing in the same way, trying to do the same things all the time. That's the biggest thing that's going to help you to improve your consistency. By getting consistency comes from being consistent. So the more that you can do things correctly on the table, the more that you'll start to get, you'll build up that consistency you're after. The second thing to mention about that, and something that I'm always talking to about players when I do my coaching sessions, is snooker is no different really to getting good at any other skill. So the more time you can play, and I know obviously at the moment because of the world pandemic with COVID-19, it's very difficult at the moment. But the more that we can play on the table, the more you will build up consistency. The way I always explain it to people, think of it a little bit like going running. If you were to go running and then you didn't go running again for 4 weeks and then you went running, your fitness would be exactly the same on the second time as it was on the first time. If you go running and then you go running again 3 days later, and then you go running again 3 days later, you're going to start to build on your fitness, and each time you're going to improve. Now, snooker is no different in that respect. You've got to keep on building on those foundations that you're building, those building blocks, and you'll get better and better over time. So I hope that answers your question there, Matthew. Okay, so the next question was from Mike Bonnet. What do you do if you're really struggling with an exercise like the all red lineup or the T-shaped lineup, etc.? So I always, whenever I'm doing exercises, the way I always structure my practice is I will always say to myself, right, I'm doing a T exercise and I'm going to do it for 20 minutes and that's all I'm going to do. And I'll write down my results that I get in that exercise in those 20 minutes. If I'm struggling, I'll carry on and just try and get the best results I can. And by the end of those 20 minutes, I'll then move on to something different to refresh the mind and give yourself a fresh approach again. I think the problem is if you just stick on one exercise and you're just going over and over it, it's very easy to get frustrated and also to be a bit lazy with how you're approaching it. Once you've been doing it for longer than 20 minutes and you've been doing it for half an hour or 50 minutes, are you really applying yourself 100% on every shot in that exercise? I would argue that you're not. So that's why I always say, try and make a little structure. Say, right, I'm going to do the lineup for 15 or 20 minutes. And after I've done that, I'm going to move on to doing some colours clearances. I'm going to do that for 15 and 20 minutes, see how far I can get. And after I've done that, I might do, like you're saying, all of the reds in a line, see how many I can get of those reds. But that's the way to structure it. Don't get stuck on one for too long. We all have bad days. If you have a bad day, at least you've got your results recorded down, and next time you go, you can try and improve again. So another good question there. Thanks for that question, Mike. Okay, so the next question is from Amar Zain. He says, I hope you're well, mate. I need to come and see you again. So I'm good, thanks, Amar. I hope you're good too. And he says, what's the best exercise apart from the lineup that you can do to improve regardless of how good or bad you are? I actually think that when I started, I used to do a lot of colours clearances. And the reason I think it's so good is because firstly, you're just seeing lots of different potting angles. So you're training your brain and getting that angle recognition forced into you. You're also having to have a little bit of a plan, because it's no good when you're on the yellow playing position randomly onto the green. You try and get onto the green so that you can get to the brown. So that's getting you thinking those 3 shots ahead then as well. You're having to have a plan. The same as when you go from brown to blue, you think about finishing a little bit short, so staying this side so that I can then get from the blue to the pink. So I think the colours clearance is excellent. And of course, the last thing to mention is it's a fantastic skill to have, because once you start to improve, you can easily turn a 20 or a 30 break into, that 40 or 50 clearance by clearing the colours at the end. So it's a fantastic skill to have. Shows you lots of different potting angles, makes you have a nice plan, requires good cue ball control. It feels like it's nice and achievable, so you're not, so you haven't got this target that's just completely out of sight that you can't do. So I actually love being consistent at clearing the colours, and just because you can clear the colours once, there's all kinds of goals. Can you clear the colours 10 times in a row? So can you set yourself up, clear the colours, set yourself up, clear the colours? And then the other thing that players do is they'll actually get down to the black, try and play from the black to the yellow again, and then try and clear the colours from where the white lands. So see how many times you can do that. But I actually think it's a fantastic way for players to keep themselves motivated, see lots of different potting angles, and have a nice plan for thinking ahead. So good question there. So the next question from Rahul Joshi is, hi Steve, my wrist twists on delivery. Tried many things but not successful, especially on shots with power 6 or more out of 10. So I actually think this is quite a common thing that players will get. I think I know exactly what you mean there, that you do your feathers up and then the wrist will twist underneath. Probably is my guess as you're playing the shot, and it will happen more when you're trying to get more power into the shot. The thing I'm always advising players to do when they're talking about things like that is to practice your full cue action slowly. Now, we always talk about this, and it's really important, and especially in these lockdown times, it's actually a great time to be able to practice at home doing your cue action, even if you're not even on the snooker table and you can't actually pop balls. But what I used to do is, so if I was to approach this shot here, is I would then, approach this shot, and then I'm trying to find out. So if I just go next to the white a second, so I'm then trying to find out, okay, how do I control my wrist and keep the cue flat all the way back? And then how do I get the cue all the way forward into my chest without turning this wrist? So you can see my wrist is not turning at the back there. With anything, I always explain it. It's a bit like, imagine, I think I probably said this in my last Q&A, learning to play a tune on the piano. You have to do it slowly first before you learn that little tune. Once you can do it and you can start to play it a little bit slowly, you can start to do it up to full speed. Why is controlling this cue any different to that? It's very difficult at first to keep the cue in a straight line, and as you say, especially when you're using more power. So what I always did is that's when I used to do my practice at home, when I would do my feathers and then keep the cue flat and straight on the way back, and then keep the cue flat and straight on the way through. So flat and straight on the way back, flat and straight on the way through. Then you can start going a bit more power. You start to feel how the cue is controlled and how the wrist works. So that would be my advice there, to make sure that you do actually practice those things slowly and then try and build it up. Last good piece of advice there, you might find that you're already starting with your wrist in this kind of a position where the hand is almost facing straight down to the floor. You do get lots of professional players playing like that. You also get a lot now that have got the wrist locked out a little bit more that way. So when they're controlling the wrist, it's actually locked out like that. You might find that by locking your wrist out the other way, so thinking about getting that wrist locked there, you don't tend to twist it as much when you're coming backwards and forwards. So those are a couple of good things to have a go at. Always practice your cue action slowly. You'll start to get better at doing it faster, and then try locking that wrist out the other way. See if you can get rid of it a little bit by keeping the wrist in a locked position. So yeah, great question there, and hopefully those tips will help you. Okay, so the next question is from Gary Fuller, who I've talked to regularly actually over the last year, and got to know Gary really well and helped him with his game. Gary's saying, right, the ups and downs of snooker player and how to keep going when you feel like giving up, and how one day you feel like you can be in the zone and the next day you play so badly in comparison. Or how can one do so many things right and still play the shot and still not play the shot well, and trying to find a positive from missing the shot, because if you miss it's not good, it can't be good. And then saying that in reality, when you miss a shot, the approach was good, the cue was online, the tune was on the cue, the hands were in the right place, but you still miss. Perhaps just dealing with the emotions. Is it ever a good idea to break a cue? Tennis players break rackets, right? So the first thing is, no, don't break a cue, because tennis rackets, they're all basically the same. They can be made exactly the same. So if you smash one tennis racket, you can just get a new one out straight away and replace it, and it'll play exactly the same. Snooker cues have got completely different characteristics. So if you break a snooker cue, if it's your playing cue, you're going to be disappointed because you'll never get one to play quite like that. Why not buy a really cheap cue on eBay, and if you get really annoyed, you can just use that one and just smash it and throw it back up the wall. But seriously, Gary, so to answer your question, the ups and downs of snooker, this is the problem, and it's the age-old problem of people saying, oh, I've played so well one day, I went in the club, I feel like I've cracked it, I've moved on to the next level. If I play like that constantly, that's me happy now. I'm happy that I can see the improvements. I'm moving on to where I want to be with my game, feeling much more positive, much happier. They go in the next day and nothing's going right. They can't seem to see the potting angles, nothing's going in. And to be honest, we all get that, and it never really stops. So if you look at, you might see Ronnie O'Sullivan when he's playing his absolute best. So there was a tournament, I think it was around 2007. Ronnie played Ali Carter in the Northern Ireland Open. And in the 5 frames that Ronnie won, he had a century in every one of those frames, and one of those centuries was a 147. Now, that's probably Ronnie playing very close to as good as he can possibly play there. He's made 100 break every time he's got to the table, and one of them was a break of perfection, a 147. Now, Ronnie doesn't do that in every tournament that he plays. Most frames of snooker are not century breaks. That just isn't the game. Professional players make a lot of centuries, but if you actually look at most frames of snooker, they're not big century breaks. So the way to think about it is, as you're improving, the problem that you have at first, and I had this when I first started, is if my absolute best is here and my highest break, so when I first started, my highest break was 36, and I'd had that once. That means that at my absolute best, I can manage to have a 36 break. And then if I'm having a day where I'm playing at 50 to 60% of my ability, it means I'm going to come right down, and I'm probably going to, I might make some 16s, maybe a 20 break in there at some point. So that's the way to think about it. Then you've got, conversely, you've got Ronnie O'Sullivan, who's got his standard up here, which is how good he can play in that Northern Ireland Open, and the stuff that he does in practice that we don't even see. He's got that standard. And then if Ronnie O'Sullivan dips to 50 or 60% of his game, it means he'll still make centuries, and it means he'll still make lots of frame winning breaks. So on the journey to improving, it can feel frustrating because none of us are ever playing to 100% of your ability. I would say that, in a year of playing, if I'm playing some friendly games with my friends, 3 or 4 times in a whole year where you feel like you've absolutely flown and you've played as good as you could possibly play, but that happens very rarely, really. My best advice is that you just have to try and enjoy the journey. It's not always about, trying to beat your absolute highest break all the time, or, see that your results have massively jumped every single time you practice. You've just got to try and enjoy practicing. Sometimes, why not set things up that are just feel a little bit easier than the things that you're trying to do? So sometimes I see lots of videos posted online, and the routines that people are being told to do are very high level routines. I look at them and they're really high level, and I think, if I was to have a go at that routine and I did it a few times, I might manage to get it successfully after a few times, but they're very high level routines. So sometimes you have to take a step back and think, what are the things that I should be doing that are going to help me with my game? I've got all kinds of routines where, I might put some reds close to pockets like this. So I put them a little bit out of the pocket. So I red something like this over each one of these pockets. And then what about trying to literally clear the table from where those reds are with a red over all 6 of the pockets? When you can do that, move the reds further away from the pocket so that you've got to control the white a bit better and the reds aren't just waiting for you. Move these further out so that you've got a bit more of a challenge. Again, do it again, move the reds further out so you've got a bit more of a challenge. Same again on all 6 pockets, and see if you can clear those reds. Try and do things where you're not just aspiring to do things that, a lot of routines I'm seeing are already designed for intermediate, maybe even sometimes advanced players. And then when you're starting out, or you've only been playing for a year, you don't get to that intermediate level immediately. That's a hard level to get to. So you have to accept that, you need to do some things that are just a little bit a little bit more comfortable at first and then slowly progress and make things more difficult. Let's say you can now clear those 6 reds. Well, now let's add the black on the spot and then try and, what about if you put the reds over the pocket and the pink, the blue and the brown on the spot with the red over each pocket, try and clear the reds and go red colour, red colour, red colour, you know, some things like that. And then once you can do it with the reds over the pocket, move the reds a bit further away, move the reds a bit further away again. Do some things that are making snooker enjoyable for you and that you're achieving some new personal goals. You haven't got to aspire to be as good as this player that's already been playing for 6 or 7 years over here, or this player that's been playing for 2 years seriously already. So do some things that, you know, make you get some enjoyment from snooker. You know, we're not all going to end up on the TV playing Ronnie O'Sullivan. So just try and do some things where you get lots of enjoyment from it. You're not being too hard on yourself. You're not aspiring that you have to be able to do these exercises on day one, because snooker is very difficult, takes a long time to get to reach a really high standard. But enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, and you definitely will get there with all the practice that you're doing, Gary. So, great question. Okay, I just want to quickly mention Jamie Ryan's question here. Hi, an area I struggle with, annoyingly due to my constant need for perfection, is how to strike the cue ball in the centre consistently. And then he says, in his category, I'm sure there's many areas that need to be addressed, alignment, stance, etc. Maybe you could also mention some particular drills that help to work on this, both at home and in the club. At the moment with lockdown, I'm using a piece of wood with a line drawn on it at the top of my ironing board. So, yeah. Just like I talked about at the beginning of this Q&A, I think it's a great thing to do with a line drawn on like that. And as I say, one of the best things I ever did was just get used to slowly how you control your cue and keep it flat, no head movement, no body movement, and how you get it all the way to your chest. You know, the more you practice that movement slowly, the more you'll start to feel. You know, when I first started to do that, I could see that the cue might twist slightly, which means my wrist must have been twisting at the back slightly, and my hand was twisting. So by doing it slowly, you start to notice the cue. You can watch it come back straight, watch the fact that it's not twisting, watch the fact that it's keeping flat. So just like I mentioned earlier on, I think the best thing to do is what you're doing there. We're limited really in what you can do at home. You know, you can cue through the hole in a water bottle or something just to make sure you're cueing straight. Build up the speed of your cue action. See if you can deliver it at different speeds without it twisting. And also maybe use your smartphone to film it as well. Film yourself from the back and the front and the side. Just have a look yourself to see if you can see your wrist twisting or what's happening. And the more you try and keep it all fixed points and nothing's moving, the better you will get at it. So next question is from Stevie Ballinger. Again, I worked with Stevie a lot last year, and it was great to help him with his game. Really nice guy as well. And Stevie says, hi Steve, what do you do when you're playing a match and you're struggling to find any type of touch or form? Again, this is a great question. I think someone else asks the same. Yeah, so Chigs Chavda. So I've seen Chigs as well, another really nice guy. How can you improve mental stability during a match, e.g. things really aren't going your way and you're having a bad day at the office? What can you do to eradicate the mind taking over? So Stevie and Chigs there, basically essentially the same question. What do you do when you're playing a match and everything just feels like it's going a bit wrong? So the way I approach matches now is I know that sometimes all you can control in a match is doing your best. That's the only thing you can control. You can't control how you're actually going to play on any given day. So sometimes you're going to be playing a match and you will absolutely feel like everything's completely going wrong and you can't do anything right. So the way I started to approach it was, all I'm going to do is make sure that I apply myself 100% and play to the best of my ability on that given day. So that includes approaching the shot properly, making sure that I never throw the towel in. So halfway through the match, if things aren't going right, don't throw the towel in and decide that, well, I'm not playing well anyway, so I may as well give up in this match now. How many matches will you have won over the years where, first of all, you won it and you just didn't feel like you were playing well, you thought you had no chance of winning, and secondly, you'll have had matches where you played absolutely brilliantly and you didn't win anyway. So what you have to do is just know that all you can do is your best. As long as you apply yourself, and I always call it being annoying. I make myself as annoying as I possibly can be to beat. So even if I'm not playing my best, if you're going to beat me, it's not because I'm going to give up halfway through the match. Now, I have given up in matches in the past, absolutely. We've all had bad days. You've got your own private life going on as well, so you don't always feel as mentally stable when you approach a match anyway. Sometimes you've had a really bad day at work, you approach a match, you're not really in the mood. But what I started to do is preempt these things up front. So what I remembered is, and you could even write it down on a piece of paper or have it pop up on your smartphone on your league nights. Remember that all you can do is do your best. Remember that the other person is trying their best to win as well. Both of you want to do your best and win. As long as you play your game to the best of your ability on that day, you've done yourself proud and you've done as much as you could possibly do. You've controlled everything that is in your power to control. What you don't want to do is know that you've missed 5 or 6 shots and then come to your next shot and you're a bit annoyed and you just get down and hit the shot because you're not even bothered now because you've given up. My biggest advice is never give up. You just don't know. Frames can suddenly turn. You can be presented one good chance right at the end of a frame and you might just clear up the last brown, blue, pink and black and win that frame. So that's my best advice there. Make sure you remind yourself on that match night, or if you've got a tournament, remind yourself that all you can do for yourself is constantly do your best. Never give up. Do 100% on every shot. Think of someone like Mark Selby. If he's 5-0 down, he's still going to give 100% on every shot, even if he's not playing his best, and he still wins a high proportion of matches doing it that way. So both really good questions there. Okay, so many thanks for all those questions there. I hope this video was helpful. I've tried to cover a few different topics there to try and help players to improve their game, and a bit of positivity as well in this, in these hard coronavirus times as well. I know people can't play at the moment, but I think, videos like this, when we're all thinking about the game, trying to stay positive, helping each other, and even when you like I say, you're not on the table, you're still digesting information and thinking about things in the background. So it's great to watch videos like this, keep these thoughts in your mind. Like I say, maybe make some notes on some of the things that I've talked about today. You're just reminding yourself constantly the player that you want to be. As I say, you're evolving as a player in all different ways all the time. Technique, the way you approach it, your mental approach to the game. As I say, just talking about the mental approach, we've all thrown games away where we haven't been in the mood and, you kind of give up because it doesn't feel like it's working for you that day. You might even do that a little bit in practice, but even if you're saying practice, right, I'm not playing my best, so all I'm going to do now, I'll do one more half an hour, just giving it 100%. I'll do as good as I do, and then that's my practice for today. I know I've done my little workout, just like you would if you were going running or doing some other exercises in the gym. So yeah, I really hope this video has been useful. I didn't want to make it too long. I've already waffled on quite a bit in this video, so thanks a lot everybody for following the videos, for supporting the channel. If you haven't already, give the video a like. Also subscribe to the channel. That really helps me to just keep these videos coming. Lots more instructional videos coming on. I'm going to try and do a few more over the next couple of weeks now that I've got a bit more time to film and edit on the table. So as always everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Take care, stay safe. Cheers.